Hey everyone, this is MusicTechHelpGuy, and welcome to part 9 of my Music Theory for Producers course. In the last video, we talked about the major and minor circles of fifths, and we talked about how you can use the circle of fifths to figure out any major or minor scale. What I want to talk to you about today is I want to talk about the three forms of the minor scale. Now, the form of the minor scale that we learned in the last few videos was called the natural minor scale. It means that you use a circle of fifths to figure out the notes and you just leave it as is. There's actually two additional altered forms of the minor scale. The first is called harmonic minor, and the second is called melodic minor. And really all you have to do to figure these two scales out is figure out the natural minor scale and then alter one note for the harmonic minor scale and then alter two notes for the melodic minor scale. Now, these scales also have different consequences, if you will, of using when you start working with chords as well. But since we haven't really gotten to chords too much yet, we're going to more or less just figure out how they affect the scales. And then in the next video, we'll start moving on to using the circle of fifths as a tool to create chord progressions as well. So let's create a C minor scale first. So remember, the method I said was to start on basically whatever the root or tonic note is of the scale. So I'm going to start on C here. And then I'm going to use a step input here just to enter in my notes. And I said you just play from C to C, or whatever note to whatever note, whatever the octave is, in all white keys. And then what we do is we go back and look at our circle of fifths and we see how many sharps or flats are in that particular key. So in C minor, there are 3 flats. So we use our order of flats, our made up word down here, bijasif, and we follow the order of flats. So the first 3 flats are B, E, and A. So in our C minor scale up here, we're going to find any B's, any E's, and any A's. And because we're flatting them, we're lowering them, we're going to lower all 3 of those notes down a half step, and what we get is the C natural minor scale. In the score editor, it looks like this. So C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C. So creating the harmonic and melodic minor scales, that's pretty simple. Basically what you do to get harmonic minor is you find the 7th scale degree, so the second to last note, which in our case is B flat, and you raise it or sharp it. And the thing to keep in mind here is when I say sharp or flat something, it actually doesn't always necessarily mean to add a sharp to it. It really means just to raise or lower. So we're going to raise the 7th scale degree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's the B flat. So in piano roll, I'm going to take that B flat that we previously lowered and raise it back up to B natural. So what we end up with is C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B natural, C. So it's slightly different than the natural minor scale. So one thing to keep in mind is if we actually change the key signature of the song to C minor so that the key signature shows up on the left side like we had talked about before, that altered note is actually going to be an accidental for natural, in some cases sharp, depending on what key you're in, because it goes against what the actual key signature says. So we had to add in a natural sign to not follow what the key signature is saying to do. But for most music production purposes, like, we're not dealing with key signatures, unless you're trying to write out the music for someone. So I'm going to go ahead and set this back to C major just so there's no sharps or flats in it. And again, this has no effect on the actual scales that we enter. Now, to create the melodic minor scale, you actually raise the 6th and 7th scale degrees. So this means that in addition to the 7th scale degree, B flat, going up to B, we're also going to raise A flat up to A. So down in our piano roll editor, we will pull up A as well, and it will now look like this. C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B, C. So let's talk about just some of the tonal differences between the three forms of minor. The natural minor scale sounds very somber, kind of sad sounding. It all really depends on how you use it. Harmonic minor, by raising that 7th scale degree up, tends to have like a little bit more of like almost like a Middle Eastern flavor to it. But really what's happening is that 7th scale degree is borrowing the 7th scale degree from the major scale, where that note is already raised up. And melodic minor more or less borrows the 6th and 7th scale degrees from the major scale. So to me, melodic minor sounds a little bit more melancholy when it's played by itself, but within the context of music, it's almost like injecting a little flavor of the major key or a major scale into a minor song to sort of give it like a lift. Now, the thing to keep in mind about the harmonic and melodic minor scales is that typically when they're written in music, the forms where we raised the 6th and 7th or 7th scale degrees are only going to really be there on certain chords and when we have melodic movement that moves upward. Because any music school will teach harmonic and melodic minor scales as you pull the notes, those one or two notes up when you're ascending, but when the scale goes down, when it descends, you actually drop those notes back down. That's more or less the written theoretical form. So you only raise in harmonic minor, you only raise the 7th scale degree on the way up, but then you lower it back down to where it was before for natural minor on the way down. For melodic minor, the same thing. You raise 6 and 7 on the way up, but on the way down, you lower them. And this is like a melodic principle. Like when you're writing, if you're writing like a melody or a synth melody or like a piano melody or something, you're only really going to raise those notes up to try to grab the flavor of those two altered scales when the melody is rising up. But when you're falling down, you typically will lower them. It's not like, again, in popular music, it's not a hard rule, but it was a rule that was more or less understood and followed in concert music and classical music. It also has some consequences or implications. These two scales have some consequences or implications for chords. Because one of the things that we're going to learn in the next video that I don't want you to worry about too much now, I'll play some examples though, is it has some implications for chords that you write, because the harmonic and melodic minor scales can actually change the structure of some of the chords within your key. And it's kind of a cool tool because you get to pick and choose where you switch to harmonic minor for just a moment. You know, you're not really going to write a song that's completely 100% in harmonic minor or melodic minor. What you're going to do is you're going to more or less pick and choose at certain spots on certain chords where to throw that harmonic or melodic minor flavor into the song. So before we listen to a musical example, let's just figure out one more set of scales. We'll figure out natural, harmonic, and then melodic one more time, just so I can show you more than once. Let's do a little bit harder scale. Let's do G sharp minor, and I'm going to do G sharp minor for a very specific reason, because I want to show you an example of something. So G sharp minor has 5 sharps in it. So F, C, G, D, A. F, C, G, D, A. So again, what I'll do is I will enter in all notes between G and G up an octave using all white keys just to start. There we go. Let me just make their velocities a little more same. There we go. And this time I'm going to duplicate the scale 2 times. There you go. Just hit Command R. And let's find the natural minor scale first. So we said it was 5 sharps. Those 5 sharps are, again, F, C, G, D, A. F, C, G, D, A. So here is F, C, G, the G down here too, D, and A. And all these need to be raised because they're all sharped within this key. There we go. So what we have now is 3 natural minor scales. So for harmonic minor, remember that we raise the 7th scale degree, and we get this. For melodic minor, we raise the 6th and 7th scale degrees, and we get this. Now, like I said, formally, we would write them this way on the way down, the natural minor way. Now, the reason why I brought this up is I want to take a look at this in the score editor, because you may recall a while back I showed an example of double sharps and double flats. This is an example of where a double sharp is going to come into play. So first, let me just select all the notes, right-click, and I'm going to say accidentals, and then flats to sharps. Well, all sharps. Okay, so this is G sharp minor, natural minor, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, just as is. Look at the harmonic minor scale. Look at the 7th scale degree. Instead of going E, F something, G sharp, again, following the alphabetic order we had talked about, it just put a G natural there. Now, again, this is going to have no repercussions for piano roll, but the way this is supposed to be written is actually F double sharp. F double sharp is the same thing as G natural. So let's click on that, right click, we'll go to accidentals, and we'll say enharmonic shift sharp. And we end up with a double sharp symbol. So the scale is actually supposed to be G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F double sharp, G sharp. And again, that's to maintain the E, F, G order alphabetically in the scale. Again, this is another one of those things where I've said before, it all has to do with tradition. It's not going to affect the piano roll notes whatsoever. So the same thing kind of applies for melodic minor. We'd have to change this G natural to F double sharp. So right click on it and harmonic shift. And here we have a D sharp. This is supposed to be an E, because up here it's an E. But when we shifted the 6th scale degree from E up to F, essentially what we were supposed to do is go from E to E sharp. Again, E sharp and F are the same note. They're enharmonics. So again, we're going to click on this, right click and say enharmonic shift sharp, and it'll place it on E sharp. E sharp is very uncommon. It's not a double sharp, but E sharp is the same thing as F. But again, it's all to maintain that D, E, F, G alphabetic order. It's not going to affect the piano roll at all. So I just want to throw that at you. It won't really matter if you're just working in piano roll, but it will matter if you try to write the music out for a musician. All right, so that is the how you can create your harmonic and melodic minor scales. Like I said before, there are a lot of other implications for this when it comes to songwriting. So I've got 3 examples of just a basic little, kind of cool, like little ambient idea that I created off screen. The first one has some, it's all natural minor. The second one has some harmonic minor implications in it. And the third one has some melodic minor implications in it. So let me play you the whole thing first, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off some of the effects in it, so the tonality isn't obfuscated a little bit. All right, so that's really cool. There's a lot of effects on it, though. Let me pull off some of those just so we can more or less hear the raw tonality of the whole thing. There's a note repeater on. There's all these effects and reverb on that. All effects and reverb here and here. The drums we can just mute because they don't really matter. So the area I'm most concerned about is the second half of each example, because the first half of each example is identical. You'll also see that it's an A minor, because there's no sharps and flats at all. I just did that to keep it easy so you can spot where the raised notes are. So let's give this a listen. So when we listen to the other two examples in particular, look at this area right here as this this melodic idea kind of moves up, and then the last two chords right before the very last chord. So the second and third to last chord. All right, so for the second example, we're in harmonic minor. In particular, pay close attention to this added G sharp here. That's the raised seventh of A minor. And then this G sharp in this chord here that wasn't there before. And it's going to start up here. And then for the last example in melodic minor, pay close attention to the two raised notes here, the 6th and 7th scale degree of A minor. Pay attention to this altered chord from before and now this altered chord. So we have all these, with 4 additional sharps that are going to change the tonality of our chords and our musical idea. Now, without jumping through the score there, let's just real quick listen to all 3 of those back to back again, just so you can hear them one after the other. So here's natural minor, and I'm just going to play the last couple bars. Here's natural minor. Here's harmonic minor. Get a little more character to it, and then melodic minor. So I wouldn't say that they're subtle differences, but they do make a difference in the composition and as far as what character that each of the instruments adopts and the chords adopt and the overall tone of the song adopts. Just to listen to it, let's listen to the second half of melodic minor with all the effects on and the drums back in. All right, so those are the 3 forms of the minor scale. In the next few videos, what we'll do is we will use the circle of fifths to figure out scales and then figure out chords from those scales and then create chord progressions with those chords that we figured out. And we'll also apply harmonic and melodic minor theory to those chord progressions to not only alter the scale like we did here, but also alter chords like I showed you in some of these examples. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.